All right, welcome back to Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, Chris Wynn in studio today. Talking a little Donald Trump, then we'll get to the Vegas Golden Knights. I did promise a few callers that we would take their calls because they've been waiting patiently on hold. We appreciate that. So let's go to Jim. Jim, thanks for calling into the Vegas Take. What's on your mind?
Actually, I guess a couple of things, a few things rather. I mean, with these elected officials at the local level and at the federal level, and regardless of who they are, we have to we should be able to hold them accountable for no matter what they do.
I don't think any reasonable person would disagree with that.
Absolutely. And another thing, too, is, sometimes some people are so, I guess, blind in their allegiance to a particular party, Republican or Democrat. That blind allegiance is not good, because if you teach that, even if you teach whoever you have your faith in, you're teaching the people that are going to be betrayed by the elected officials.
Yep.
And I'm not a Republican, a Democrat. I'm a constitutionalist. That's how I'll label myself.
Sure. And Jim, you know what? You know what, Jim? The two worst words in this country. I say it all the time. They're not obscenities. They're the words Republican and Democrat, because too many.
Absolutely. There's no difference. They're Democrat and Republican. Depending on.
There you
Depending on. I appreciate you taking my call.
Thank you, Jim. And I couldn't agree with you more, by the way. Could not agree with Jim more. Two worst words in this country, Republican, Democrat, because too many people make decisions based on what party they're in rather than what is good for the country.
And to be fair, look, to be honest with you, we all understand that who's the party in power right now? Who's the party that's in the White House? Who is the person that's in the White House?
That's true.
Because Republicans and Trump supporters always say, oh, all you guys do is blast Trump. Well, hey, he's the president. He's the guy in there. He sets the tone. He's the one. He's the target, right? It's the same thing when Barack Obama was president, same thing when George Bush was president, and of course when Bill Clinton as well. So it's there's a method to the madness. There's a reason why, either the Republicans or, the person that's at the top who's in the White House is going to get the majority of the criticism, because they're the ones in power.
No doubt. I agree. Let's take one more call on this. Let's go to Paul. Paul, thanks for calling in. How are you? Paul, are you there? I think we lost Paul. Sorry about that, Paul. Try back if you want it, 257-5396. But, we do have to get to the Vegas Golden Knights. And it's quite the transition from talking about Donald Trump and all the issues that took place in the last 24 hours. But you know what? I said when this series started against the San Jose Sharks that I thought the Sharks would win the series, and almost everybody in the media in this town picked the Vegas Golden Knights in 5, in 6. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. This Vegas Golden Knights team is not the same team last year. Are they still a good hockey team? Absolutely. Was Stone a great pickup? Absolutely. Is Fleury, or as people like to call him, Flower, is he still, a future Hall of Fame goaltender? Absolutely. But the bottom line is that I think the Vegas Golden Knights are in trouble, and I think the San Jose Sharks are looking for revenge. Would you agree with that?
I would not agree with that. I think that it's way too early. We're talking about one game last night. We all saw it. We all witnessed what went down. And those of us who have followed the sport and have covered it, like you and I have for a while, there's always that phrase that's used, particularly when the Stanley Cup playoffs roll around. It's like a series doesn't start until a team loses a game on home ice. And we use that phrase also in the NBA playoffs too. But the point being is that no need for overreaction here. There's a reason why Vegas here. I'm not talking about the city. I'm talking about the sports books have Vegas favored in this series. Okay, it's because look, I think Vegas is the better team all around. Now, did they play that way last night? Absolutely not. And offensively, there's things that need to be worked out, and we have to kind of fix some kinks on that side of the ice without question, because you got to be able to get more shots than you got in the first 40 minutes plus of that hockey game. But make no mistake about it, they're not out of the series. They lost game 1 on the road.
I didn't say they were out of the series.
To a team that was struggling down the stretch. The San Jose Sharks, you're not going to mistake them for a powerhouse hockey club the last month and a half, 2 months of the season. Okay, so they got game 1 under their belt. They won at home. But this becomes a big game tomorrow night, no question. But there is by no stretch of the imagination am I counting out VGK in this series just because they lost game 1.
No way, shape, or form did I say they were out of the series. No way, shape, or form did I say that they have no chance to win the series. I'm just saying I did not pick them to win the series. This is a huge game. And if they lose this game, if they lose game 2, then it comes back to Vegas on Sunday for game 3 in a must-win situation. You're not going to come back down 3-0. Your goal, correct me if I'm wrong, in the NBA as well. When you start a series and you play 2 games on the road, obviously in a perfect world you'd like to win both games, but you're very happy in most circumstances going 1-1. Right?
Yeah,
you want to come
absolutely.
back home 1-1 because then you have all of a sudden you have home
You
ice
want the
advantage.
split.
Right.
That's what you want.
So they're feeling pretty good about themselves if they can win game 2. They didn't play well last night.
No.
And it just didn't seem like they weren't crisp with their passing. Certainly the forecheck wasn't as good as it normally is. They weren't turning the puck over. Fleury did not have his best game. I thought he let a few in that he maybe should not have. They took a lot of dumb penalties yesterday. They weren't disciplined. And Gallant, after the game yesterday, said it. He said, look, they beat us in every category. Right? I mean, that's what he said. He said, we were terrible, basically. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, they beat us in every category. He was not happy with the way they played. But I'm going to say it again. This is not the same team that they were last year. They don't have the chemistry that they had last year. They're still a very good hockey team. But, when you lose a guy like a Neal and a Perron, those were guys that were huge parts of this team. Look, they've got some great pieces to replace them. But I'm telling you, the chemistry is not what it once was. They're still a very good hockey team. They still have one of the best goaltenders in the NHL. They still have one of the best coaches in the NHL. They have a great staff. They've got great players, Marchessault, Carlson, guys that are very, very talented, even though Carlson is not having anywhere near the season like he had last year. Stone was a fantastic pickup. This Sharks team is extremely physical. I'm not sure this team is as physical as they were last year. To win in the NHL playoffs, to make it to a Stanley Cup Finals, for example, what happened last year, I believe the team was more physical last year. I believe they got pushed around yesterday, and they're going to have to win those physical battles. And if they don't, I think this series could be done in 5 or 6 the other way. I know a lot of people in Vegas picked the Vegas Golden Knights to win in 5 or 6. I looked at that. I'm like, what? I thought to myself, if the Vegas Golden Knights win this series, it's probably going to go 7. And I'm going to stick to that. I still think San Jose wins this series. If the Knights win, this is going to be a long series. It's going to go 7. We had Sean Burke, former NHL goaltender, that was on the show last week, and he agreed with me. And he said, look, this is probably one of the best first-round matchups because these two teams are so evenly matched. And San Jose does have home ice. And, let's just call it for what it is. When you play an NHL game in Vegas, it's a huge home ice advantage. The crowd is nothing against the San Jose crowd. The crowd here is unbelievable. They play great hockey at home. They don't always play great hockey on the road. But again, you could just forget about game 1 now. Reset your clock, so to speak. It's game 2 tomorrow night. You get the win. It's a different series. And the Vegas Golden Knights all of a sudden have an advantage.
But you brought up chemistry, and you kind of alluded to it in a negative way that the chemistry is different. I wouldn't say it's not as positive. I think it's just different. It's a different team, no question, okay, than it was a year ago. And it was a storybook season. They make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. That's all fine and good. But this year, they did make changes. Obviously, Perron and Neal no longer with the team. They were replaced basically by Pacioretty and Mark Stone. And some other pieces as well, too. Yet they were still able to have a very successful season in the regular season and one of the best teams in the Western Conference, right? So you go into the playoffs. And the playoffs, it's a different animal. We know that, Shap, don't we? I mean, just the team's approaches. You're playing teams up to 7 games in a row. It's a lot about strategy. It's a lot about kind of the feel for the game against each other. It's the rivalry. It's the venues where you're playing. They're very familiar, and you end up going back and forth. It's just a different animal. So, I mean, to make a judgment, in my opinion, off of one hockey game where they played on the road and lost to the team at home, as opposed to, I mean, look. For example, look at in the Eastern Conference, you had the Columbus Blue Jackets coming back and beating the Tampa Bay Lightning, okay, in Game 1. Now all of a sudden we're supposed to think, because the Blue Jackets were able to get a win, and they got a win on the road in the opposing team's rink,
right?
And so now all of a sudden we're supposed to flip and say, Tampa Bay, they're done. They got, not only did they lose, it's not like they went up to Columbus and lost in Columbus. They lost at home, so the series should be over, right? No, people aren't thinking that. They're thinking it was a speed bump that and Tampa Bay could win the series in 5 or 6, and if it goes 7, so be it. But Tampa Bay is probably going to win. That's kind of the feel I have with this series. I feel overall, okay. Notwithstanding yesterday's game, which the Golden Knights did not play well, as you pointed out. You pointed out the reasons why.
Yeah.
But when you have Marc-Andre Fleury between the pipes, as opposed to Jones for San Jose, I'll take my chances. Okay, with a Hall of Famer, with a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury, and that's just one aspect. I'm talking about. There's other pieces of this team. I think, that are superior to San Jose. And so when you're talking about better team versus another team, I still feel like the Golden Knights have the weapons, they have the offense, they'll have the wherewithal to be able to get it done and get this series.
Again, I hope you're right.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where I'm rooting against the Knights. I want them to win. I love going to play. To me, there's almost nothing better in all of sports. I love the NCAA tournament. Going to an NHL playoff game in person, the intensity, I don't care if it's the first round or if it's the Stanley Cup Finals. You've been there, right?
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. But I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to find out what the atmosphere was like actually there in San Jose last night. And the guy we have with us on the line right now does a great job for Channel 3 as the lead anchor, Bryan Salmond, out there in San Jose. Bryan, thanks for coming on, my man. How you doing?
Yo, Shap, man, I'm doing well, man. It is cold in San Jose right now. Goodness gracious.
Oh, come on now. I know you don't have some kind of, winter coat going, Salmon. You're probably sporting a nice, sweet, black, slick overcoat, looking all high class, baby. That's how I feel.
So tell me.
There you go. See, win. What's going on, man?
What's going on?
What does Bryan Salmond do on during the day in San Jose on an off day? What is there to do in San Jose?
Did you say off day?
Well, you're still working, but what is there to do in that town? Like, what is there to do?
Really quick, I'll run down what there is to do in San Jose on an off day for myself. And actually I have Robert Noble, one of our photographers, with me, and also our new sports guy, Jesse Merrick, is here as well. But, yeah, we had a nice good start around noon for the Golden Knights, their practice. We get live on television at 3, live on television at 5. Live on television at 6 o'clock, live on television at 6:30. So I just got done with all of that. But besides that, now that I'm free, we're about to go get some seafood, baby. We're trying to eat.
Yeah, you sound a little. I feel like throwing some Bill O'Reilly on you right now. We're going live. We're going live.
We're doing live.
Yeah, don't say the other things he said. But okay, so Bryan, let's talk a little bit about last night. First of all, I've never been to a hockey game in San Jose. Never been to a Sharks game out there. What was the environment out there last night?
Man, that is absolutely the perfect question to ask. And the reason being is because, we're kind of spoiled with – we're not kind of spoiled. We're absolutely spoiled with T-Mobile Arena and just how the atmosphere inside of there is extremely high energy. And we love it. The best in the NHL, voted on by the NHL. But San Jose last night, the energy inside the building was great. It was way more electric than I thought that it would be. San Jose has a very good home ice advantage, and we're expecting the exact same thing for tomorrow. They're actually practicing what they're going to do for tomorrow's game during one of our doing it live. It was nice. It was real nice.
So, Bryan, a big open question, of course, with the Golden Knights is who's going to be that rival, right? It was thought that it's probably going to be the Los Angeles Kings, given the proximity, the dynamic between Los Angeles and Las Vegas, possibly maybe even the Ducks. There was discussion of Arizona with the Coyotes and then, of course, with the Colorado Avalanche. But do you get the feel, do you really think that given the history of these teams, just in the short recent history, the last 2 years in the playoffs, that this is starting to develop into the quote-unquote rivalry between the Vegas Golden Knights and another opposing NHL franchise?
Oh, I don't think that it's a developing rivalry. I think it's a full-blown rivalry. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think that all the teams that are in the Pacific Division and that are in California are rivals with the Golden Knights if they're good and they're playing each other in the playoffs. Last year it was L.A. in the first round because of what everybody said, like the players were talking all that trash about the Golden Knights and how they wouldn't be good. And this season, it's the Golden Knights and the San Jose Sharks. One, because they're 2-3 is how they finished in the Pacific Division, and two, just look at how they played as far as physicality-wise between the two teams. I mean, they hit. They hit last night. They had 83 hits between the two teams, and that was up from 80 hits that they had in the last meeting that they played in March. So, yeah, there's absolutely a rivalry. The fans out here in San Jose, they let us know they don't like Vegas every time they see our mic flags, knowing that we're from Vegas, or they see someone with a Vegas Golden Knights jersey on. So It's absolutely a rivalry.
So I want to talk a little bit about you. You know, obviously you spoke with Gallant and some of the players after the game. Gallant was obviously not happy. And from my perspective, just watching the game on TV, I wasn't there, but it just seemed like they were not crisp. They got beat in every category. A forecheck wasn't there. It seemed to me that they just weren't putting enough pressure and they weren't putting a lot of pucks on the net. And it also seemed like Fleury didn't have his best game, although I'm not going to blame him for this loss. It just seemed like they were lackadaisical out there. It didn't feel like a playoff game. Put it to you this way. It looked like a playoff game for the Sharks. It didn't look like a playoff game for the Knights. It just seems like San Jose's intensity was a bit higher.
Man, it's almost like you set up these questions to ask me because you know I have the absolutely perfect answers for these questions. But no, I'm serious because I was just talking about that on air with Jesse about everything that you just said, and you could not be more correct. Gerard Gallant, the players, they echoed your sentiment saying that San Jose, they badly outplayed them. They had way more hustle. Their floor check was much better. They deserved to win that game, and they showed up, and that's why they won. So as far as the intensity, definitely San Jose had the intensity. As far as Marc-Andre Fleury is concerned, I just talked about that, and that's why I know his numbers and the fact that he gave up 4 goals on 32 shots.
Yeah, not good.
And that is not good.
No,
that's not good at all. And that's the least tied for the least amount of shots that he's had faced against the San Jose Sharks. 32 shots is the least amount of shots that he's facing against San Jose. So he didn't play well at all, and he talked about the fact that the team, San Jose, put a lot of shots on net. They put a lot of people in front and blah, blah, blah. But basically, he needs to play better. Mm-hmm. So
Brian,
hit the nail on the head.
Brian, we like to call him Psychic Shapiro around here because he's always wired in. He knows what direction to go with our interviewees.
I like it.
I like that.
I thought we called him all kind of other names, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one nice thing that somebody called me today. I like that.
Oh, okay, there we go.
So, Brian, we've got Game 2, of course, coming up tomorrow night down up there at the Shark Tank at the SAP Center, and an opportunity for the Golden Knights to possibly even the series. You had a chance, of course, to go to pressers both I assume today and last night. Turk obviously not too pleased with the outcome of Game 1. Were there any indications that there could possibly be some changes from an offensive standpoint? Because there was a discussion of guys maybe like a Ryan Carpenter or some type of movement on those second, third, maybe even fourth lines to kind of spur them offensively and to be able to get a few more shots at Martin Jones and the net for San Jose.
Man, it may be Psychic Shapiro, but Clairvoyant Chris. Man, I just thought of
there it is, baby.
Right now. That's pretty good. I just thought of that right now. But yeah, because Gallant was asked that question today, and he actually talked about that, and the fact that he may have a little something in his back pocket. He wouldn't commit, and he never will commit about a roster. But he said, we're kind of giving some thought about that. Ryan Carpenter, Brandon Peary, these are 2 guys, and the rest of the players that were walking behind us where we were sitting in the media section last night.
How about Colin Miller? There's another one.
Colin Miller was with him as well.
Yeah.
Those are players. I think you probably will see Colin Miller and Ryan Carpenter in the game. And so if that's the case, who do you take out?
Yeah, because actually Turk was addressed in the press conference last night, right, about Colin Miller. And he was very, I think it's safe to say, defensive when he was discussing
he said
why
it was
he wasn't
healthy.
in the lineup.
Colin Miller was healthy and that it was a coach's decision. We all know what that means. So something going on there that he wasn't happy with. So, Brian, I guess I'll ask the obvious question, right? What do they need to do differently tomorrow night? Because obviously you go into a series on the road, and me and Chris were just talking about that. Mm-hmm. If you can split and go 1-1, you're feeling really good about yourself coming back to Vegas. But if you go back to Vegas on Sunday down 2-0, I think we all could admit Sundays will be a must-win situation.
No, I agree. Sunday would be a must-win situation if they were down 0-2. And like myself and Jesse were talking amongst ourselves is that San Jose coming into Game 1, they really had way more pressure to win that game. It wasn't a game that the Golden Knights necessarily needed to win, but San Jose absolutely needed to win to be into the series. And now even Game 2, the Golden Knights don't have to win because you're not expected to always win on the road. But if they do win, they're coming back in a very good position in the series. I think that all the Golden Knights really need to do is, play a little bit more desperate. They knew they weren't desperate. They were not going to say this, but they knew they weren't desperate to win Game 1, and that's how they play. I mean, it really reflected that. So I think you're going to see them play a lot better. They know what they did wrong, which was mainly effort, and I think that they win this next game.
I thought they lost the physicality of the game. I thought that was the big part of yes, you could say in their offensive zone they weren't crisp with their passing, the forecheck. We can talk about all those things, Brian, but when it comes down to it, they just weren't physical. They lost the battles. They got, I guess, out hustle is a word you could use, but they lost the physical battles. And let's be honest, San Jose is a very physical hockey team. They just are. So I think if they can match that type of intensity, and I think they'll certainly be in the game. I don't know if they're going to win tomorrow, but I think that's who wins this series. A lot of people said that Vegas was going to win this series in 5 here in Vegas, and I was like, this is a very good San Jose team. And I certainly think that if the Knights win this series, I think it's going to go 7.
Wow, 7? I think 5-6 if they win this series. But I agree with you completely in the fact that, San Jose is a good team. This matchup from the beginning was going to be a great playoff matchup. It's one of the better playoff matchups in the NHL, I think, in this first round. Even though now, with hindsight being 2020, you think that all the matchups are going to be good because it seems like all the underdogs won yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right. That's true. There's 2 guys on this San Jose team that I don't want to say I'm a fan of, but I admire. First of all, Evander Kane. I thought that deflection he had yesterday was just unreal. It showed you he's such a physical player and he's so athletic, but that deflection, I don't think people understand the amount of eye-hand coordination you need to pull off a play like that. And look, the Knights have some players that certainly, and the NHL has I'd say 80% of NHL players are capable of making a play like that, but it showed how skillful Evander Kane is. I thought Brent Burns had an unbelievable game yesterday on both ends of the ice. He looks like a different player now than he did last year against the Knights, where I'm going to be honest, he looked slower. He looked a little bit intimidated by the Knights' speed. I feel like Burns is more prepared for the Vegas Golden Knights. He looked supremely confident, and that's why he's their leader.
I would agree in the fact that Burns was really confident in the game. I think Burns, obviously, he played a great game against the Golden Knights. I think he's a slow guy, and he's not – his style of play doesn't necessarily translate as a style of play that's good to go against the Golden Knights. However, last night it was, and I think that it'll go back to Burns not being very effective against the Golden Knights in game number 2. I think he did a lot of stuff that he's really never done against the Golden Knights. You know what I mean? Like, he's never really played all that well against the Golden Knights.
Right.
Going into the game, Gerard Gallant talked about the fact that, we kept Brent Burns really in check throughout most of the games that they've played. So I don't think that they're going to have a problem with Brent Burns tomorrow. I think they'll sew up most of the stuff that they had, the problems that they had with him, and it'll turn out well for them.
I do think it's interesting, though, B-Sal, that Shap brings up Evander Kane, because there's a lot of Golden Knights fans out there, I think it's safe to say, that aren't exactly down with Evander, and we saw the little testiness between himself and Ryan Reeves there on the ice. There's no question there could be some extracurricular activity between those 2 guys before this series wraps up. I think it's safe to say.
Just to say that you made extra between Evander Kane and Reeves. You guys probably know, Reeves was on one, except Kane. So I think there's be a point in time in the series where the gloves, or he keeps his blicks in on Kane, kind of like Reeves made sure he got his in on Wilson. Remember, he made sure he lit him up for what he did to Jonathan Marchessault so in the Stanley Cup.
Is he underneath an overpass? You might have. We're having a little audio issues with your phone there, Brian.
Your phone cut in and out, but that's okay, Brian. Hey, listen, I want to say I was giving you crap.
Back in my hotel.
There you go.
Okay,
you sound better now.
Yeah.
I was giving you crap, texting you saying, Brian, you're supposed to come on with us at 7:05. What's going on? What's the deal? And then you texted me back and you said, I had to do a live hit. I understand now why that takes precedence over my show. So sorry if I was giving you a hard time.
It's all good.
Yes. Your phone sounds
you got
like
a little weird sound going on with
you
the.
sound like one of those cell phones that Eddie Murphy used in like one of those movies back in the day in the little red Corvette. But Brian, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. Appreciate it. We lost you there. Might have been using an Obama phone. I'm not sure, but anyway.
And he's looking for seafood, man. You are in the Bay Area. I'm telling you, B-Sal.
Yes.
You got to head up to Fisherman's Wharf. It's like a 35-minute drive, San Francisco. You get one of those sourdough bowls with some clam chowder in it. You get the stone crab that they crack it right there on the rock for you. It's top notch.
It
if
is.
You want to go that route.
They do have some good food down there in San Jose. I'm not sure what else they have that would be good, but that's okay. I don't know. They're okay. San Jose is not really a place of hot spot. I wouldn't call it a hot spot.
Well,
right?
it's the southern part of the Bay Area. You've got Palo Alto in between San Jose and San Francisco and Oakland. And it's all right there. It's all within it's a reasonable 30-minute drive to get from San Jose to San Francisco. So there's a lot of spots you can hit, particularly seafood,
Well,
if that's what he's into.
Well, let's hope the Knights grab some good seafood tonight, and let's hope they eat some sharks tomorrow. Let's see what happens. But my thanks to Bryan Salmond from Channel 3 for joining us. We got Chris Wynn in studio. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to Mike Babcock from TMZ Sports. Find out what he thinks about Magic Johnson stepping down, the Lakers situation, and much more. You are listening to The Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN.